In this session, I'll present my work on developing an intelligent framework to detect high impedance faults in transmission lines with the help of different deep learning techniques. And uh, speaking briefly about my background, I have done my PhD in electrical, and my main research area was AI based protection for power networks integrated with renewables. And in my current company, also, although I'm working in health domain, but my true passion lies in solving power system challenges using intelligent techniques. So now I'll share my screen and we'll proceed with the session. I hope my screen is visible to all.
Yes, doctor, it's visible pretty much.
Just a second. So, in today's presentation, we will be discussing about advanced transmission line fault detection using the deep learning techniques, like I said. So, here is a brief go through of the contents that we'll be discussing about today. So, we'll be starting with the basics of power system architecture and what power system is and what transmission lines are in a brief manner. Then we will discuss about the nature of high impedance faults and why detecting high impedance faults becomes difficult nowadays, and then the proposed deep learning technique that has been utilized for its detection and simulation and the results that were developed, followed by some hands-on on implementation using the Python. So moving ahead, um, this is the diagram or a basic structure of a basic power system. So in a power system, there are three components: generation, transmission, and distribution. Transmission lines are, as we all know, are very important because they connect power plants to substations across large distances. But just because they span a very large distance and they span across various terrains, across different geographies, they are very vulnerable to faults due to maybe lightning or birds sitting on the lines or equipment failure, and many more problems arise in it. So it's important for us to detect the fault as soon as possible so that the overall continuation of power is there. So, so like I said, the if there is a problem in transmission lines or if a fault occurs, various problems happen like voltage instabilities, power interruption, damage to transmission equipment. So they have to be uh, neglect have to be fastly dealt with so that there is no problem and the flow of power continues. So the there are major challenges that we face these days in transmission line protection. So majorly, the problem comes with detection of faults, because the faults have various characteristics, and are sometimes the relays or basic mechanisms that are there are not able to detect, because maybe the fault is occurring for a very brief time, or the fault is rapid or transient in nature, or the exact location of the fault is not estimated properly, due to which the maintenance worker is not able to segregate it from the main line and deal with the continuous flow of electricity. And again, the next problem is fault classification. Suppose even if there is a fault that is occurring, it is important to know what type of fault is there, so that accurate relaying mechanism can be activated to deal with fault detection. Then also, there are dynamic operating conditions that cause problem, like the adaptability in which the scheme needs to adapt to different loads or generation patterns and network configuration, and these keep on changing from network to network. And then sensitivity is also a problem, like suppose a system, there's some change in load condition, or the topology changes, so this affects the performance of the protection devices. And again, some unsaid or unforeseen problems occur, like the transient events, when there is a capacitor disconnection, or there's some switching event when the load is connected or disconnected, or there is some power swing, or like, because of all this, the unnecessary tripping happens. So um, like I said, there are various types of faults that we need to deal with. The most difficult type of fault is that is difficult to detect is high impedance faults, because they have very low ampere value, and it is very difficult to detect them by using normal relays. They usually go undetected. So, and they cause the major damage to the system, because they have very large impedance. So it offers the flow of current in a negative manner. And what happens is, the long lines get disrupted, because they have inductances and capacitances attached, where and they fault. So there is a large voltage drop in them as well, and because of which we are not able to detect them properly. Like the current, overcurrent relays that we have are usually set to operate between 125 to 200% of the normal load current. And like HIFI said, it has very high impedance. So they draw current in the range of 0 to 100 ampere, and they usually go undetected. And they pose a danger in the transmission system, because if a live wire falls on the ground, or it touches the ground, then the person maybe get electrocuted if someone is standing near it. Or, and as the current value is also very less, the breaker doesn't detect it very easily, so it is dangerous. So these are the characteristics of high impedance fault current. In this, like, you can see that the current magnitude is very small, like I said, between 0 to 100 amperes it's there. And then it causes continuous arcing, and it has a very asymmetrical kind of waveform, because, and the waveforms continue to like increase, decrease, they build up and sometimes shoulder, which causes a problem for the conventional relays to detect them, because of such wide nature of the current. So it is like I discussed that it is important for HIF to be detected easily is because it can cause fire hazards. The people working on the poles and all can get electric shock maybe, and the utilities or customer services also get interrupted, and they can cause significant hazard to people on or near the live wire. So what causes the high impedance fault? So in this figure, we can see that even if a fault, rain is happening, or the tree thunderstorm is there, or the conductor is broken, or the infrastructure is aging, or maybe some environment factors are also there like moisture, dust, or tree contact, or we can say that sometimes electrical causes are also there, like the transmission lines are long, and inductance and capacitance of long lines increase, and all these cause problems in the are the causes of high impedance faults. So uh, so to deal with problems of high impedance fault, uh, we have developed a system in which we are taking the data or the voltage and current signals directly from that are coming from a transmission line, and they are collected using sensors, various sensors placed, and we can also collect them from the stage substation near the transmission center or the generation center, and then we use them to uh, as a fault detector unit in our system of deep learning. And so in this technique that I have implemented, I have used the three phase RMS voltage and current data, and I have concatenated the data, then like collected it and made a matrix out of it, in which the voltage and current signals from various lines have been collected, and all the three phases voltage and current signals are considered, and they are given directly as an input to the deep learning architecture or the deep learning technique that has been utilized. And then the fault is being detected with the help of this deep learning architecture that has been used, which in returns tells if there is a fault or not, and this helps in increasing the chances of detection of fault multifolds, like we will discuss in upcoming slides. So, to conduct this research, we have used a power system network of the Chhattisgarh state in India, which is a 400 kilovolt transmission line, and it consists of various substations and long transmission lines connected across various cities. So, for our research purpose, we have taken data from the Khedarma district, that is this, as you can see, Bhilai, which is indicated by Bhilai, and between Vindhyachal district. This is a 215-kilometer line, and various fault scenarios have been tested on this, like low impedance faults and high impedance faults also. Low impedance faults have also been done to check the robustness of the system, and in later slides I'll discuss that how this data generation thing is done. So for now only this line has been considered for detection and classification of faults. So moving ahead, so this is a standard simulation model for HIF. This is an Emmanuel model, like you can see in the figure. and it consists of variable resistances and diodes and voltage sources. And by changing the values of these voltage sources and resistances, we can replicate the real type of high impedance faults. So here, like, sorry for the like, I think this table you cannot see properly. Sorry for that. This 150 to 500 ohms represent the value of the RP and RN, and and then 4500 and 5500 and 75 to 8500 represents the value of VP and VM. So these resistance and voltage values we keep on changing to replicate the real life scenarios. Like in this case, we have used a concrete surface. Like if the conductor falls on a concrete surface having a 10 centimeter thickness, then what will be its characteristics? We have simulated using this HIF model, and similarly for soil and concrete surface also, these values of RP and RN and voltage and current have been voltages have been changed in steps of different like here 5 ohms in every half cycle to replicate a real HIF fault happening in our system. So two cases have been considered. So this is and using this we have generated various types of faults, such as the single line to ground fault and double line to ground fault. The data set that has been used, I will discuss in detail in later slides. So after generation of the voltage and current data set from the system, from the Chhattisgarh state system having high impedance faults, we have developed a attention and capsule based CNN model for detection of fault. In this, different layers of deep learning have been used. Like for the, like you can see in the flow chart, that the input layer is there, in which we input the time series voltage and current signals, and then that is directly given into the by LSTM layers. So in this case, we have not calculated any features, because the property of deep learning methods is that it does not require features much. It directly captures the properties of the signals that are being sent to it. So then here we have used stacked bidirectional LSTM, which is capable to capture the sequential nature of the faulty current. If I tell you in detail, YLSTM is a type of a recurrent neural network, and it is used in deep learning, especially for sequence data like that we have here in time series, because we are getting continuous voltage and current signals, and the flow doesn't stop in such in current and in sorry detection of fault cases. And then LSTM is something that is an advanced form of RNN, which can remember dependencies, like long term dependencies, very well. Because if we train our model, we need data that captures the information for a very long period of time. It remembers how the previous or other type of faults look like. And also in this case, it has been used because it is good for time series data or sequential data. So like I said, this is a bi LSTM. So it is called bi LSTM because it processes the input in both forward and backward direction. So with the help of which The model understands the past and future context at each point in the sequence. So if we give it some new data, it will be able to identify very easily. Like too much model training will not be required, and we can use it for multiple system as well. So next we have used the attention layer. So it is used for highlighting the important time steps that are used in our fault detection task, like where exactly at what point the fault had occurred. So for that purpose, attention layer has been used. Like if in simple words, I say that instead of treating the whole signal equally, the this layer helps to attend to the most important part of the signal for a given task. So what happens in an attention layer is that it allows the model to weigh each input uh, differently, like it weighs it dynamically. Like, so the next layer after that we have used is a CNN branch, which is a 1D convolution in addition of with attention capsule for parallel feature extraction. This has been used so that if any of the features are not being able to be identified by BiLSTM or attention layer also, if it fails or not fails but is not able to capture, maybe something is still left, then the CNN branch has been used. So in this we have used multiple kernel sizes and different like patterns and layers of CNN to extract the data. And its main importance is that it combines the diverse features of often of the models and boosts the processing. Like it is applied at the end so that it gets any of the remaining feature also, and then at the output, like we have a fully connected layer where branch outputs that are coming from the CNN branch are merged together. So for making of this model, the parameters can be shown in table number 2, like the epoch size is 140. We have chosen this by trial and error method, like what worked best. So an epoch is one complete pass through the entire training data set during model training. So like when you run one epoch, the model has seen like the number of data that we provide in the branch size. Like if you can say that if you train for 10 epochs or 20 epochs, the model sees the entire data set 10 times or 20 times, so that it is able to learn in a much better way. So and the next parameter that is chosen is optimizer, where here we have used Adam optimizer. So optimizer is an algorithm, or it is used to update the model.
मैंने
Sorry.
जैसे दुकान दबाया ना वो नीचे उतर गया
uh, Kindly, thank you. um, so optimizer is used to update the model weights based on the error and loss that are calculated during the training. And here we have used Adam optimizer because of its adaptive learning rate and its momentum. It is very widely used in these type of problems, like the time series data. And then the learning rate is chosen as 0.001 because we don't want the data to learn very fast, so that it captures even small uh, features of the signal. So, in short, we can say that learning rate decides how fast or how big the steps are going to be in the model, like at what speed the model is going to run to learn. So these are the parameters in detail that have been used for the deep learning architecture. And then moving on to the detect fault and non-fault generation data set, we have used multiple faulty condition. Like I said, for high impedance fault detection, various LG, double LG, and triple LG faults have been determined, and then 7 cases for that have been generated. And then this high impedance fault resistance, like concrete surface and the which was discussed previously in the table, have been varied to generate several cases by varying resistances. And then fault inception angle, like at the time at which fault is happening, that is also changed, and for that 6 cases are assumed. And then fault location is also changed to replicate these HIF faults multiple times at different location. Like here with, like in the line, the whole line is 195 kilometers, but we have utilized between 5 to 180 kilometers for calculating the faults. And like these 36 cases have been simulated. And then it's not only important to capture to detect the fault conditions only. Sometimes the system may falter, so it should also be able to detect or any non-fault condition also, so that it doesn't rip the relay. So for that we have used no fault conditions such as capacitor switching, where the capacitor banks placed at the starting and have been connected and disconnected. And then the generator, the main generator, has been deliberately been tripped out at the various buses. And the loads that are connected, like motor load or any non-linear load, they have also been switched in and out of the system to detect non-faulty situations. And then grid distortions are also carried, because there are multiple times when harmonics are present in the system. So that is also important to, like, harmonics usually go undetected, or sometimes they are taken as a fault condition only. So they are just presence of additional frequencies, and they are not a problem if they are within the IEEE limits, like up to fifth harmonic, they are okay. So we have considered these conditions also as non-faulty conditions. So moving ahead, for generation of, like, to see how the model works. So the whole training data set was divided into two parts. Like 20% of it was used for training, and the 80% of it was used, sorry 20% was used for testing, and 80% was used for training. And with the help of our model, we have obtained the accuracy, recall, specificity, precision, and Matthews correlation coefficient and F1 score to determine how the model is performing. And all these parameters are evaluated with the help of a confusion matrix. So confusion matrix consists of false positives and false negatives, and true positives and true negatives, with the help of which we can determine these parameters. And it is a table which helps in visualizing the performance of the classification or detection system. So it gives um, a brief idea about how the model has actually performed by comparing the true values with the predicted values. So this it is a four grid matrix, and if we want to calculate suppose accuracy, then we will take the sum of true positives and true negatives divided by the total number of data that we have, and then like sensitivity is calculated with the help of the formula like true positive rate divided by the true positive plus false negative rate. And then apart from the these, we have also calculated the fault detection time, because that is most important. Like fault is being detected by relays also, but the fault detection time by using deep learning method is what actually makes the difference. like like if I say that fault detection time is actually the amount of time it takes for a protection system to detect a fault. So if it gets delayed, the system security is hampered, the stability of the power system is again at a problem, and then it also helps in identifying the, if we get the fault detection time to be very very low, then the location of fault can be timely detected, and the outage time can thus then be minimized. So for this, we have used this formula, as you can see, where TD represents the detection time, T identification is the point at which the fault was identified, and T inception is the time at which the fault actually occurred in the system. And moving ahead, in addition to, like I said, faulty cases, non-faulty cases were also used, like switching of generators, capacitor switching, and distorted grid and harmonic conditions were also considered. So in this table 4, we have shown the class-wise result of the proposed scheme that we have obtained. Like in no fault and faulty conditions, what is the accuracy, precision, and recall and all. So it can be seen that the system is able to detect these faults 100% using the proposed deep learning model, and also for detecting faults the accuracy is 99%, and all the above, and all the scores like precision, recall, and specificity are also high, nearing 1. So the system is robust enough to detect the faults. So here we can see the graph of the accuracy of the model, where the blue line represents the training accuracy and the orange line represents the accuracy for the testing data. And like I was talking about the confusion matrix, it can be seen that the no fault shown by yellow has 100% accuracy. One means that it has 100% accuracy, and the other yellow block shows 99% accuracy in detecting the faults. Next, we have the loss curve, in which that we can see that after 140 epochs, the loss is almost nearing to zero only for both training and testing. So a model loss tells is that is a number basically that tells you how far off your model's prediction from the actual values. So if it is coming near to zero, then it shows that the system is able to give better prediction. So in this proposed model also, the loss has almost become zero only. The difference between the predicted and actual values have almost minimized with the help of this model. Next, Matthews correlation coefficient was also calculated to check the accuracy of the system. So the Matthews correlation matrix is a statistical matrix which is used to evaluate binary classification model. Like here we are detecting if the fault is there or not. So we have used that. So it can be seen from the graph that after different folds, like we have considered 5 folds here, the correlation, the MCC score is between 0.9. Like the highest was at 0.901 or 2 you can consider. And like if it is nearer to 1, the value of 1, it means that the fault has been detected perfectly. Like, so it can be seen that at fold number 2 we have received the highest MCC value, and therefore this shows that our system has worked well in detecting the faults. Now moving ahead with the fault detection time for different types of HIFs, like two types of data surface were HIF surfaces were used for detection of fault, and different types of fault were held at various kilometers. And like you can see that the fault detection time is just 85 milliseconds being the least, and 166 milliseconds for the soil and concrete surface, which is around 40 to 50% lower than the conventional relays that we have. So this also in a way proves that this system has worked robustly in detecting various types of high impedance faults. So, like here we can see the graphical representation of the different type of high impedance faults. Like in the first figure, figure number A, HIF fault is occurred at 1 second. The values of voltage and current have been normalized to make things easier for understanding. And as I said, that high impedance fault don't have much like variation in their current values, or they don't get a very high peak if a fault occurs. So it can be seen like from figure number B that the at the time of inception of fault, the current signals did not vary much from its original value. And then again, case number 2 has been considered, in which high impedance fault occurring on the concrete and soil surfaces are taken. And then here again, same current signals have not deviated much. Then after that, the figure number E shows that how our model has performed in detecting the fault. Like when the fault was incepted, we can see that at 0.38 seconds, the fault was detected for both soil and concrete surfaces. And as soon as the value from 0 to 1 happens, like the signal increases, this means that the detection of fault has started or it has occurred. The relay now will be tripped. And like discussed previously, that the detection of time is very low in our case, which is between 85 to 166 milliseconds in our case. Moving ahead, we discussed about effect of no fault conditions also. Like if there is a fault is in the system, the output of the system should not go high. Like the fault detector system should always show 0 as its classification output. So in this case, we have taken an example of if a capacitor of 50 MVAR, which is located between two buses, is stripped, then Like we can see there is some distortion in the voltage and current waveforms with for 1 or 2 cycle, like this disturbance happens, then also our system is able to detect it as no faulty system only. It doesn't go up even for a second. So in this work, we have used high impedance faults using the deep learning architecture that I discussed previously in details, and the methodology that has been used for making of the data set is done using this MATLAB, and in which we have replicated the real-time HIF and done the coding using Python. And the test results show that 99% accuracy in detecting the the faulty conditions, and 100% in faulted condition. So also the detection time is just 4 to 5 cycles, like discussed, and it can be concluded that this hybrid technique that we have used is dependable, rapid, and it's precise and can be used for detection of faults. So here are the resources that have been used in this work, and they will be shared with you. So moving on with the hands-on on this, like how this code was implemented and how everything happened. I will discuss every step in making of a deep learning model, like starting from data set to how different fault conditions have been generated, and then how our model was trained, and how finally the results were calculated. So the first step in any deep learning life cycle, or sorry, in any machine learning based module life cycle is data set, like how the data set is generated. Like in our case, we used the data set from the transmission line that I showed of the state electricity board. So in that, using MATLAB, different fault conditions were given, like LG, LLG faults were given, and then the signals were captured. Like in this case, we have taken 8 lakh measurements of power line voltage and current signals, and they are calculated or captured every 20 milliseconds, and then they are labeled as faulty and non-faulty, and each 8 lakh measurement is given a ID first, so that each has its own unique identity. And then they are converted into the data set. The signal data set is converted into and exported using the parakit version, which allows it to be used in different types of IDEs for used for Python coding, and it is basically used to make it compatible with all types of Python models, so that it can run in everybody's like system. Like you don't need to have to make a unique environment, and it works everywhere. So the whole data set was just voltage and current signals. Next, we next is development of the model. So for the development of deep learning model, we have used you can use various Python IDs, like Visual Code is there, then Jupyter is there, Spider, and Google Colab is there. So in this case, I have used Google Colab. It is an open source, freely available Python IDE, which gives GPU and CPU and TPU support as well. So the coding was done in Colab, but as per your convenience, you can use anything. So moving ahead to the Python code that was implemented for deep learning. So for that, we have used various libraries. Like here, because our data is in time series, we have used pandas. Then to make the voltage and current signal applicable or compatible with our model, we have used the pi arrow parakeet to read the data. And then for implementation of deep learning model, we have used sklearn library, which is used to import different layers and models like LSTM and BiLSTM and attention capsule model. And then with the help of sklearn library only, we have implemented the confusion matrix and imported all the other necessary libraries for detection for calculation of various matrices. So if, like I said, I've used Google Colab. So implemented sorry, I used mounted all my data on the drive, Google Drive. The voltage current signal that you have generated, you can store them in a CSV or an XLS form, and you can use Drive to mount it on the Google Colab so that it can be directly read in your system. Then the next step in this is to load the training and testing data that we have created. Like here we can see on the right side that signal ID and is there. Like this shows different different conditions of fault, and then target is given, like 0 stands for no fault and 1 stands for faulty conditions. Like this, the whole 8 lakh data set points are there, and this data is divided into training and testing, and this is done using this df underscore train, or the sorry, it is stored in this training data frame. And next is like I said that we have not used any of the that feature extraction or feature thing in this, but because the value of voltage and current were varying very much, I have used min max normalization here, just to make the data at at the same scale. So this normalization is used uh, to make the data between 0 to 1, like the raw data ensures that all features contribute equally during training of the model. So, and it also prevents like the large ranges to dominate those from smaller ranges. So this is done to enhance the numerical stability and is essential for like time series data. So this is the formula for calculation, like the maximum and the minimum values of the feature is divided by the minimum and maximum feature value, which is in the original state, like when it is not converted into 0 to 1 form. Like from the data set that you have to pick the minimum value, the maximum value, and then have to calculate its norm. So likewise, each of the 8 lakh data set was normalized for voltage and current signals separately. So this is how min-max data transformation was performed using this code. So in this function scales the, like I said, the data between -1 to 1, and we have chosen the default one only, between -1 to 1, to keep the values in per unit range only, because that is how in a power system network we keep the values. Like if we take random values like say 50 to minus 50, or that, it causes hindrance in determination of actual features of the voltage and current data. So this is the code that was used to calculate the min max. This code will be shared with you, or has been shared with you, I think. You can go through it in detail. Then next is preparation of our training data set. So for training, we have used three-phase signals, like I said, for voltage and current. So we have three columns for that, like each one for each A, B, and C phase of voltage and current. And after every occurrence of fault, it was stored in three columns, each for voltage and current. And like this, data sets were created and stored in an Excel or CSV file depending on our choice, and they were each given a target and ID. Like ID is the fault type, like the fault that is happening, and the target is 0 or 1, like if this is a faulty or a non-faulty condition. And then it was stored as an array. Like finally, once you read your data in Excel or CSV, then you store it as an array for further processing using deep learning methods. So here, like we can say this, at the end we have x and y. Like it is written return x and y. So x stores are all the training data, like the input feature data, and y stores all the target values. That is 0 and 1 in our case. Then the next step is to divide the training data into two halves, like training and testing. So we have used 80% for training and 20% for testing of the data. Next step that we have used is data exploration. Because before moving ahead with any deep learning model, we need, like application of any deep learning model, we need to first understand how our data looks like. So for that we have used various techniques, like to see how the model sorry the how the values or signals that we have of voltage and current are distributed. Like this is done with the help of the mean, standard deviation, skewness, and kurtosis of the data that is there, which helps in understanding the actual features of the data. So this is for a better understanding. Like this is done using matplotlib library in Python and Seaborn. And like in the first figure we can see that we have calculated a distribution of mean curve, and we can see that most, like because we have normalized, we can see that most of our data lies between 0 and 0.1, like not even 1, it is more towards this side. So here between 0 and 0.01 most of our data will be present, and here from here we have to find out where the most of the faulty data is present. So next we have calculated the distribution of mean values per column in the training set, like how in different uh, phases A, B, or C the mean value lies. Okay. Next is the next statistical method that we have used is standard deviation. So here, for each phase, we have calculated the standard deviation to check the statistical value that is most dominant in any of these phases. Next is again kurtosis have been calculated. So here, like this, different statistical techniques have been used just to get a glance or brief glance of how the statistically different features are present in our system. It's just for our like seeing purpose to like if we see something visually, it becomes better for our understanding. So the next thing that we have used is TSNE distribution, which is the T distributed stochastic neighbor embedding. So in this has been used in our system because the system has 8 lakh data points, which is a huge. So for that you mainly use GPU or TPU system, and that is not easily available with all of us. So has been used for dimensionality reduction, so that high dimensional data which is in 2D or 3D space can be easily reduced. Like we can think of it as a smart way to compress and plot the complex data, like the features that we have here, so that patterns and clusters or separate sections that we have like seen, like it can be seen in this figure, that how they are distributed. Like so it in a simple way, if I say that it is used to visualize like how the model will see our data, like the embeddings or hidden layers in the neural networks are seen. For that we have used this TSNE technique, and this is the code that was used to calculate it. And again, it was used to like the main purpose here, again I will say, was to compute the pairwise similarities in this high dimensional space that we had, and then compute the pairwise similarities also between the voltage and current, or between different voltage and current signals from various types of faults, and how A, B, C phases were connected to each other. Like moving ahead, next we have used ISO transformation also in this. In this, it has been used to preserve the actual nature of the data. Like it preserves the difference between the distance and angles between the various points, and uh, angles between 2 points, like, and it helps in keeping the data in its original form. Like it does not lead the data to stretch or shrink, which may sometimes happen because of dimensionality reduction. So this has been used after TSNE application. So this is how our data becomes in a clustered form after application of ISO transformation, and it becomes like now in this form it will be easier for the deep learning model to evaluate different types of faults, because now it is in a clustered form. So for this, we have used again sklearn library, and there is a direct way to find out the ISO map. Another way, like used TSNE, PCA based principal component analysis type dimensionality reduction technique could also have been used. So that has also been used in comparison to TSNE, just to show like which one is better. So this is used to reduce the dimensionality or the number of features in the data set while preserving as much variance as possible. Like it finds a new axis or the principal component along which the data has the most variation and projects the data onto those axes. So this is just used in comparison to TSNA. So like you say, like in this figure, you can see the data is clustered together. It is not able to separate it into different features. So we did not apply this technique for dimensionality reduction. Next, we'll come to how the result calculation took place. Like in this, we have used oh, I'm so sorry. Like Matthew's correlation coefficient has been used for dealing with the class imbalance problem, because we never know that how much which type of fault will occur. Like sometimes one type of fault problems are more, and sometimes one type of fault occurrences are low. Like high impedance fault, like I said, are very rare in nature. They so to deal with the imbalance problem in real life also, like in if we implement this system in real also, how it will deal with real data. So that is why this is used. So this was it. This performance matrix was used. So we get a better accuracy on imbalanced data set, and we are calling this data set as imbalanced because um, few cases of faulty and non-faulty data set, like I said, have been calculated, and some maybe some new type of fault may occur in future, and it should be able to find, like detect the any other new type of fault that is occurring in it. So this is the code for defining the Matthew correlation coefficient written in Python. And next, moving on. Now we will discuss the how the deep learning model was built. Like what were the different layers that were used. Like this, like I said previously, that it had an attention layer first of all. Like so, an attention is a mechanism in deep learning that allows models to focus on the most important parts of the input in making detection. Okay, so instead of processing the entire input equally, attention learns weights that indicates which parts of the input are important, like for a specific task. Like in this case, like at which point the fault was occurring. So that is why this was used, attention layer. And to make the attention layer, we have used this uh, code in which a class was defined, and different regularization parameters and weight constraints and um bias constraints were used, and attention layer was developed. Next, we have the capsule layer. So it is also a type of a deep learning technique only, in which the different network layer that has grouped neurons into vectors, each representing both the presence and pose, like the position or orientation of the feature, is shown. So it is actually a special type of a neural network in which a group of neurons, or a vector you can say sometimes, that inputs not just process of a feature, but also its pose, like the position, like, and it shows the length of the vector and it depends on the direction of the vector. So length of the vector in this case is the probability that a feature exists, and direction of the vector is like how it is encoded in the feature or spatial information. So this is mainly used to preserve the part whole relationship. The next is this is how we defined our capsule layer. In this, we used sklearn library again and used different parameters like the kernel size, the dimensions, the routings, and different parameters to build this model. And again, these parameters were built using trial and error method only. So like here, like I said, a kernel is defined here. We have chosen its size to be 9 and 9 comma 1. So it is basically just a sliding window that moves across the input data and performs element wise multiplication or summation, so that it captures all the values of the features correctly. So this is how the capsule layer was defined. So next is a combination of the attention capsule CNN model for detection of fault. So like I said, it consists of LSTM, then this attention layer, then capsule, then lastly we have a convolution 1D layer, and after which there is one fully connected layer which gives the output. So and at the end we compute the binary loss, and the optimizer used is Adam optimizer, and metrics in this case we have used Matthews correlation and other accuracy, and all that is also calculated with the help of uh, our confusion matrix. So if I discuss this in detail, like the input, starting with the LSTM module, it has the input layer, which has shape values in which we will give the input shape of the features that we have, feature vector that we have. So in this case it is 1 and 2. Next, moving on, we have the bidirectional has been used. So bidirectional LSTM has been used. So here the number of neurons that are chosen are 128, and then we have used kernel of which is known as Golrod kernel, and then at the end of the bidirectional model, second bidirectional model, we have again used this Golrod normal kernel model only, and 128 as the input neurons, and then they are initialized at the uh, at this point where recurrent initializer on orthogonal is used, having these features gain and the seed value 1029. This seed value you can take anything, it is just a random number, so that the weights and all other details remain the same if you use it in different machine also, like in different system also, and x here represents the input. So next layer is our attention layer, and after that there is a dropout layer. So we have chosen the dropout rate as 0. 0.5. So dropout means that how the uh, like it is a regularization technique, like it is used during training of neural networks to prevent overfitting. Like it like here it is 0. 0.5, so it is just a percentage of neurons in a layer during each uh, training session, like out of the total 128 neurons in one training session or one epoch, 50% of the weight of, sorry, 50% of the neurons will be used. This is used to increase the randomness or in the system, so that training is happened correctly. Then we have capsule layer after that, which is added as next layer to the LSTM outputs. So the number of capsules that I've used here are 8, and the roots that are used are 4. And again here 0.5% of dropout layer has been used. Next is making of the convolutional CNN layer. Here we have again used the neurons 128, and the but this time the kernel initializer is taken as Hey uniform, and this we have obtained like these mainly what type of kernel or what type of gain or what like I said has to be taken randomly. And also sometime from previous researches also I have come across that these type of initializers work best with voltage and current signals, like with our power system networks. So after that, at the end of this convolutional network, the activation function that is used is ReLU, like which is the rectified linear unit, and it is used especially in CNNs only. And then again, a capsule layer is formed after that, and then at the end of this capsule layer, all the features that we have obtained from attention, LSTM, and capsule layers are concatenated into one, uh, and then they are flattened so that they can be given as an input. And at the dense layer we get the output, like it all becomes one single uh, and featured like single column, you can say, and then we get the output of yes or no, like 0 or 1. And for model loss we have used binary cross entropy and Adam optimizer, and this was used to calculate the final model values. And binary cross entropy we have chosen because it is most commonly used for this our binary classification, and for prediction of yes or no, or faulty or no faulty values. So this is how the whole model is made for the detection of fault. So this is the architecture of the attention capsule CNN model, where we have shown how the different LSTM and attention layers were connected with each other, like how many, at what point dense layer was needed, at what the where all the capsule layer has been added, and finally how all of them are connected to give the output. So like discussed previously, this is just a brief detail of how the whole model was formed, like what was the input shape, like the input we gave the time steps and features, features were like here were time series signal of voltage and current, and time steps like every 20 milliseconds the data was obtained. And then we used two bidirectional LSTMs and with the help of CUD and an LSTM. And then after that attention mechanism was put on to obtain the important feature, and after which capsule layer was used, and then all three of them were combined uh, and used to find the final fault in the system. So like uh, like I said that LSTM attention and capsule and everything was concatenated together, and the output layer where we used a sigmoid function was used and for binary classification. So in short, if I want to discuss my model, the temporal dependencies were obtained via BiLSTM, and contextual focus, like the more important features that needs attention or need to be captured, were found using attention. And then capsule layers were used for representation of these important features. And if any feature remains, then we used convolution CNN method we used. And next, we also performed k-fold validation, like I discussed in k-fold previously, that in which our Matthews correlation coefficient was calculated, and we saw that at the second fold we got the best results. So it is, so k-fold validation is nothing but just a model validation technique which we use to assess how well a machine learning model will generalize to unseen data. Like, instead of using a single test split, we divide our whole model into different folds, validation folds. Like here we have used 5 splits to train the model in 5 number of times, like where each fold had equal number of data, but it was all randomly split, and the average result was calculated. And with the help of this, we can make and ensure that the model is more robust and has a reliable performance. So we can we previously, from the previous graph, it was shown that the second fold showed the best results. Then the last step is to find the output, and this was done using the splitting of the data set into different folds and predicting for each. So like here we can see on the right side that signal ID and target is shown, so that corresponding to which signal ID or which type of signal, that what is the output value. Like this shows like 0 or 1, the target will show 0 or 1 value. So this is about it, the model, about how the model was made and prepared. And here are some of the references that I have used for development of this model. And thank you everyone. I would like to now take any doubts or questions from the participants.
Thank you, Dr. Manvi. It was a very nice presentation, and we can now imagine how a PhD scholar and a data scientist can look like into this work. That's a very great presentation. I appreciate you, Dr. Manvi.
Thank you, sir.
And I would like our all esteemed participant to discuss the queries or suggestion if they have something to share. It would be nice if we make it very interactive session, and Dr. Manvi is over here to answer any technical query or suggestion regarding a research into deep learning or uh, how electrical engineering and transmission line fault detection topic can be enhanced for further work and research work.
Yes, please feel free to ask any questions.
All right, so it was a very nice presentation and a very nice session, Dr. Manvi. Let's wind it up now, and if there would be any kind of query we would be receiving from any participant later on, then I would definitely forward that to you so that we can share and get insight of your expertise over that. All right.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Manu. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thanks a lot. Have a good night. Have a nice evening. Bye bye.
Thank you.